Good morning to you all and welcome to your weekly morning show. We start our segment, our discussion, with climate change. The Meteorological Organization said that for the first time, global temperatures are more likely to breach 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming within the next 5 years. So what is behind the bleak 5-year forecast? What will be the impact? Is the Paris Agreement failing? What is El Niño and El Niña? All these questions will be explored with our guest, Thomas David Dowling, Environmental Security Specialist, joining us via Skype from Germany. Good morning, Mr. Thomas.
How are you?
Thank you for accepting our invite.
You're welcome.
Our world is likely to break key temperature limit for the first time over the next 5 years. What's behind this 5-year forecast, Mr. Dowling?
Well, the forecast is really influenced by the rising temperatures that we're experiencing around the world. The alarming thing is really that we are getting there faster than was predicted. And that's really the nature of this report and really the segment for this show today.
Right. Some organizations estimate that temperatures have already reached 1.2 degrees Celsius in 2022, while much of the world has been influenced by the La Niña climate phenomenon with an expected El Niño weather pattern. So what are these phenomena? Could you explain these phenomena and how do they impact our weather?
Well, I mean, both of these are natural phenomena. They arise in the Pacific Ocean, and they do impact our climates. So currently, we are in El Niña. This has the impact of slightly dampening global temperatures. So what would otherwise be a currently warmer world right now is slightly cooler than it otherwise would be or should be. El Niño actually increases temperatures. It creates a warmer atmosphere, and this will likely create a temperature spike. So the temperature spike from the El Niño in conjunction with anthropomorphic influenced climate change, which is warming the planet, will likely push us collectively over the 1.5 degrees centigrade that is being predicted.
Understood. What will be the impact of smashing the 1.5 degrees Celsius figure, which has become a symbol of climate change negotiations?
Well, I mean, there are a few things to think about. First of all, the 1.5 is really a good guiding barometer. So the overall goal was to not breach 2.0. 1.5 allows us to, 2.0 by the end of the century. So 1.5 is a good barometer to try and keep us below that more extreme temperature. Now, the 1.5 that we've got in our heads is there. It's a good number. It's based on science. It's been agreed internationally and multilaterally at the Paris Agreement in 2015. Now, we're not there yet. This is the important thing to point out. We're not there yet. There is a high likelihood that we will get there within that 5-year period, as you mentioned, but we're not there yet. The problem for us is that we are likely to get there, and it will have likely dire consequences for the planet. Everywhere will be affected, but not everywhere will be affected equally at the same time. There will be some places that will have terrible heat and rising temperatures, and there'll be other places that are more affected by hydrological disasters, cyclones, storm surges. There'll be rising water in certain places too. So what we should...
Carry on.
What we should be aware is that what we're going to be seeing beyond this 1.5 target once it's breached are not anything really new. Human history has all of these examples within it. You go back as far as you want in human history, recorded history. My background is actually ancient history before going over into international security and environmental security. What we are seeing and we'll see in the future are things that have already happened. The difference is that they will be more frequent and they'll be more intense. This is the real problem. And this is why the report is so alarming, because once you breach that 1.5, things will get much worse, much sooner. But we should also remember, just to slightly repeat myself, and as you yourself have mentioned, we are not at 1.5 yet, but we are still seeing all these terrible disasters around the world. 2022 was terrible for the entire planet. We had horrendous flooding in Pakistan. A third of the country was inundated by water. We had flooding in Germany, in Belgium. We had wildfires all over the world, in Chile, in the United States, in Algeria too. Nearly 40 people died in Algeria from forest fires, including some in the military. So we're going to be seeing much, much worse natural disasters and extreme weather events once we pass this seminal 1.5 degree pre-industrial level marker.
So the newest report from the World Meteorological Organization is actually telling us that we are moving towards a failure of the Paris Agreement? Simply put, it is a failure. The goal was, as I said, to not breach 2.0. So we're not at that particular failure yet, but the failure that we're talking about is a 1.5, which will help us to keep the 2.0 at the end of the century. So by definition, we have failed to achieve that particular goal. Yes. Mr. Thomas, almost all nations agreed to set or have agreed to set to a set of resolutions in each COP, but it seems like objectives are far from being met. Should they adopt new approaches? What should be done in this case?
I mean, over the last few years, the COPs have really been what's been driving, I think, world organizations and collective responses to climate change and environmental insecurity. They have achieved a lot, in my view. They have achieved in putting the actual threats and problems front and center, not just for intransigent and reticent world leaders to see all the problems, but also the mainstream public. There's nothing in the world today, and of course your job is in the media too. There's nothing in the world today where we can't see things going on. The media is everywhere. And so the COPs are really a good way of promoting all those problems to the mass audience. Now, the problem is, for me, is that while we've had lots of really good commitments and lots of words, we haven't really seen a lot of deeds. And it's until we can get those deeds, those actionable policies being put into place, we're not going to be seeing any major differences. We're going to continue to see global temperatures rise until that action is put into place. Now, what can we do? Well, there's so much that we can do, and we know what we need to do. Mm-hmm. This is the infuriating thing for people like myself and people that work in this industry. We all know all of the inputs. We know the problems. We know the effects of those problems. We know the likelihood of future problems, and we know the solutions that we need to put into place to tackle those problems. So all the information is there, all of the knowledge is there, but what is lacking and has been lacking for 30 years is the political will. And we've seen lots of sound bites by people like Antonio Gutierrez, people like Greta Thunberg, and scholars in my field from a long time ago, people like Norman Myers. For a long time they've been saying, look, we know everything. We just need to put the actual plans into place, and the plans are all there. Things like, and this is really the key one, is to transition from a fossil fuel economy into a more renewable economy. This is a really big one, but that's going to take substantial time, substantial resources, and substantial help from a lot of different partners and stakeholders. And that's going to be really the key one. But beyond that, there's things that we all know we can do in our personal life, switching off the light, stopping the water when we're brushing our teeth. And then there's bigger ones like afforestation, planting vast areas, rewilding large areas that has been piloted in various areas. There's things like stopping deforestation, having tighter and stronger judiciaries that actually prosecute environmental crimes. There are things like tougher regulations on illegal wildlife trafficking, especially keystone species like elephants that could actually really build up the forests and things like that, like they have done for thousands of years. There are so many things that we can do. There are new technologies we can invest in. There's been a lot of criticism around carbon capture, but that's one example of many different types of things. So we know all the solutions. We know what we need to be doing, what we can do. It comes back down to the same problem of political will to get the job done, and that's what's lacking.
Commitment is definitely lacking in meeting the objectives of climate change. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Dowling. Thank you for your insights. And thank you, dear viewers, for following up until here. The English segment is still here. Stay with us.